Welcome to another edition of the Sultan of Small Talk. I'm Chris Carbone, and tonight we're going to talk about something that I think is important. What happens when you get setbacks in life, where some obstacle gets thrown your way and you are thrown for a loop, or you just completely fail at something? How do you get back up? How do you regain that momentum that you initially had? How do you win in the end? We're going to talk about that. You've heard of all those famous failures out there. Well, I'm one of them. I'm just not famous. I have failed at so many different things, and I want to give you a little inspiration if you're feeling down and out. Maybe you just had a couple of really crummy setbacks. Maybe your business that you wanted to take off just did not. Maybe it just fizzled, or maybe it's not having the kind of traction that you expected. Well, I've totally related to those situations. My wife reminded me of some of the things that she's seen me attempt. A couple of stabs in the dark trying to see if we can make something really big happen, and sometimes it doesn't work. I gotta tell you, the only thing that really is different for me is I just bounce back so easily. I think that's what's so inspiring for her. She just doesn't understand why I can fail and get back up and try something new, because I think you gotta change your mindset. I think one of the best ways to describe it is with one of my favorites, Zig Ziglar. He wrote, "Failure is an event, not a person." It is an event. It's just a thing that happens. It doesn't mean that you are no good. It doesn't mean that your thought was no good or the opportunity was a lousy one, or maybe it's lack of preparation. Maybe it's just not its time right now, or maybe you aren't the right fit for that particular business opportunity. But I want to tell you, there are so many people, so many examples of people we think have been successful all their life where they really did flop. For example, I had no idea until I started looking into it that Katy Perry, her very first album she ever put out, and it was a major release, sold 200 total albums. I would say that's a pretty monumental flop, but she came right back. So do you want an example of just one of my failures? I was convinced I needed to do more public speaking. And when my friend Chris, again, another friend with the name Chris, love that, he asked me if I'd like to come to his high school and speak to some of his seniors that were graduating. And I said, most definitely, that sounded great. I guess I hadn't been around high school seniors in a while, and I kind of forgot what that awkward experience is like, so I thought it was gonna be tremendous. And as soon as I get there, I quickly realize, I think I'm really outmatched. I'm really outnumbered. I don't know if I'm ready for it. These kids are tough. And for some reason, I kind of felt the need to feel cool and relatable to these kids. And I think when my wife watched back, when we played back the tape, when we recorded it, she said, "How many times did you say booyah?" I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever said booyah before it, and I know since she brought it to my attention, this is the next time I've ever said booyah. But the kids were not feeling me. The takeaway is this: when they don't ask you to come back for a second visit, you probably gotta change your approach. If you like this, smash that like button. Anyone ever heard of this guy, Walt Disney? Yeah, he's got this world, he's got this land. You probably visited it once or twice. Mickey? Anyhow, what's crazy about that story is when he had his first job with the newspaper, he just getting started and had all of the ambition in the world, and he was quickly fired simply because he didn't have enough creativity. Everyone has a story in them. I felt like I had a story, but not a novel, because that's just going to take too much time. I could only come up with maybe a short story. And then I was thinking to myself, I'm not that bright. Let's try children's book. So I've got a children's book, and my wife loves it. She is probably the only one besides two of my children that have even heard this thing. I really need to focus on how to publish this thing and like get some traction. So was it a waste? No, I can still say that I've got it, but what I haven't done is really moved it in any way. I think sometimes the most important thing is going from conception phase all the way through to fulfillment. And there's a lot of steps in the way, and there's a lot of processes, and wrapping your head around it can be very mind-numbing, but you gotta realize that the best way to do it is just a little bite at a time. Find out what you need to know to get from here to here, not from here to there. You just gotta do it incrementally, and I find that it all just kind of falls into place. Are you feeling like things are a little tough? Let me tell you about a story. I think it's inspiring. Have you tried this bread called Dave's Killer Bread? Delicious. Fantastic. Mom, thanks for suggesting it all those years ago. Here's what I can tell you. The story is kind of interesting because of the founder, David Dahl, out in Oregon. He himself had a troubled childhood, mostly because he got into a lot of drugs. And the problem was that led to robbery and incarceration, and then another incarceration. In fact, he spent the bulk of his young life, by 30, 15 of those years were spent behind prison walls. That's awesome. We just shook the camera. Is that a tremor? Are we on a fault line? Now he gets out and he decides he wants to change his life. There are not too many options for him in terms of employment. Because of his checkered past, people don't necessarily want to hire a 15-year incarcerated veteran. So he goes back to his family's business, which was a bakery. And he just kind of gets back into what he used to do, and he finds joy in it again. And what he really discovers is some pretty amazing new recipes that lead to some successful bread, and it starts selling. One thing leads to another. Eventually, he takes those setbacks and he leverages that with a huge contract. It is now purchased for $275 million, and he no longer needs to worry about pain and suffering because he's making lots of dough. So I guess I'm a little old school. I thought that I was like listening to all of these good home study programs, and I was really buying a bunch of DVD programs, so I thought I would create my own. Now here's the funny thing, I'm not talking about 1984, I'm not talking about in 1992, I'm talking about like, I don't know, just a few years ago. Admittedly, nobody does DVDs anymore, but I didn't pay any attention to that. I didn't look into that. I created this home study program for business owners who really want to go ahead and kill it and try to develop better business leads. The problem is I did it all in a DVD format. No one cares about that. Like, I would only be selling it to people who are my age and much older. I should have sold it on beta or maybe on VHS. It would have been just as successful. So now what do I have as a result? I've got another learning experience. I also have about 1,000 of these things sitting in my closet right now. And I don't know, I guess they make good coasters. I was convinced this was gonna take us right to the promised land. So I was approached by one of my best friends, Lainey, and we were in advertising, and we just realized there was just not an opportunity really that we could find where it would appeal to a more affluent brand. Many things that you can do advertising for like mass market brands. So she says, why don't we try to get all of our bags that we're creating that we call premier bags, why don't we get them in first class? So anyone who's riding in first class would have this great, awesome assembly of things that we kind of put together. And I said, that sounds great. So how do we do that? And she says, well, we'll just call all the major brands. So we did. We started reaching out to Continental and United and American Airlines, and we booked meetings with each one of them. We eventually signed a deal with Continental, and high five, everything was awesome. This thing was gonna take off. The problem was the timing, realistically. This was right when all of the biggest competitors for the airlines were the low-cost carriers, someone like JetBlue or Southwest Airlines, and they were kind of eating the lunch of all the bigger airlines at the time. So now they were taking things off of the airplanes. There's no food, or if there was going to be something in first class, they were even taking olives off of salads to kind of find ways to make margin. So we were bringing something valuable to first class to help them differentiate. So Continental really loved the idea. However, the challenge then became we need to get those brands into the bags. And so we were asking them to pay to be a part of the program, and also secondarily, adding something of serious value to the bag. It was very difficult times since the airlines could not afford to buy the bags. So with that concept, there was the challenge. We were just in the wrong time. If we had done this a decade before, when there was a lot more opportunity because there wasn't so much competition, we would have killed it, in my opinion. Or alternatively, the other thing we could do, and we only learned after licking our wounds from this situation, was go after somebody with a much bigger budget. Someone like private jets would have been a better plan. But this is all what you learn as you go. And in the end, it was a huge learning experience. Wasn't particularly profitable, but man, we had a valuable experience along the way. So I don't get too upset about it. I just say, hey, you gotta learn some way, and it became a resume builder. What about this, you might ask? This is brand new territory for me. And as of right now, it's like February 6th or February 7th right now, 2021. And my subscriber base is killing it. I think where are we at? About 140 subscribers. So I kind of anticipated it would take some time. I wasn't exactly sure how much time, and I'm not disappointed because in my head, I looked at it this way. I'm gonna give this thing 2 years, and I'm gonna be really consistent and put out content now every week and see where this can go. I think it's gotta be organic growth. I'm not gonna buy subscribers. I'm not gonna try to like sub for sub. None of that stuff is sustainable. So what I wanna do is just hone this craft. Every day that we go ahead and film another one, I just wanna get incrementally better. We're not talking about monumental video shift from day 1 to day 7. We're talking incrementally better. And I don't know if anyone's noticing, we're learning a few editing tricks along the way. So eventually my thought is after 2 full years, we'll have a bevy of videos and we'll have a lot of people that found us organically in search. And eventually we'll get really good at this. But right now, you gotta suffer. All of the really good inspirational movies that you love, like the Rocky series, or like Rudy, or you name it, you know the movies that we love, all of them inspire us because the person who's the main character continues to get beat up or knocked down or not taken seriously or doesn't make the team, but comes back persistently and wins in the end, and wins your heart, and wins your loyalty to them. And that's the important thing. Think about it. How good would Rocky be if he just lost and that was it? And he just said, that's it, Adrian, I'm throwing in the towel. Like, that's not gonna work. That's not inspiring. Although I continue to fail, I continue to succeed as well. So I don't just focus on the mishaps or the mistakes or the setbacks. I really try to take stock of everything. It's kind of a shotgun approach. Try a bunch of things and see what works. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you don't work or that you're broken. It just means that it may not work for you in this moment. So I think half of it is just mindset. Having the right attitude, having the right mindset is imperative. And you can't just focus on the failures. You gotta realize you're taking something away from this. You're taking like all of the learning that comes with it. Like when you go to college, and if you decide to go that route, you'll spend tons of money to get to that point where you've got that graduation and you've got the diploma, but there's a lot of learning that comes along the way. And if you decide not to, and you decide to go the entrepreneurial route, your learning and the expense of it all is the failures along the way. But it's still going to, at the end of the day, get you that much closer to what you really want to do and what you feel is your calling. And sometimes you just don't know what your calling is, and you're not blessed with the knowing of what that calling is going to be until you kind of explore a lot of territory, which is my situation and my experience. I don't have the blessing of knowing exactly what I want to do at 12 years old. So since I didn't know, I had to struggle through and I had to kind of meander about until it started becoming a little bit more crystallized. I hope this is helpful for you. I know this was fun for me. It actually wasn't terribly fun. It really kind of was painful acknowledging some of the crappy things that I've done in my life. The important thing is, don't live with any regrets. None of the things that I've screwed up with have I ever regretted. I think it's just part of the experience.